who long for hope, right?
Yes.
Right. It doesn't take long for us to realize this. Our society is filled with anecdotal evidence that points to how hopeless we must feel. Here's a bit of anecdotal evidence that I've observed over the last 10 or so years. At one point in time, superheroes were the things that childhoods and comic books were made of, right? I don't know how many of, well, let me not base this on gender because this may not be true just across gender lines. How many of you were into comic books when you were a kid? See, and I'm glad I did not do that based off of gender, right? Awesome, all you girls out there rock. I loved superheroes. Do you know who my favorite superhero is?
Superman.
No. Batman. Right. Superman, I like Superman. I'm a DC Comics guy. I like DC Comics. Not that I have anything against Marvel, but I did like Batman a lot. Partly because he was human, right? There's nothing that really makes him super, except that he puts on a cape and a suit and does some very super things, but he himself is human. What's that?
He can't be killed.
He can't be killed? I think he can, actually. Batman did die in the comics, but he came back to life, so he didn't quite die. But he typically isn't killed, because who wants the hero to die, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, there's something that's awesome about him all the same. I grew up reading the comics. I grew up watching The Incredible Hulk. Everybody remember the Incredible Hulk series back in the 70s? Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, the animated series was the pinnacle of my life right there. I love that. And who did the voice of the Joker in Batman, the animated series? A little trivia for you.
Cesar Romero.
Nope, not Cesar Romero. That was Batman, the series, back in the 70s. And yes, he did play the Joker. But in the animated series, Mark Hamill did the voice of the Joker. And Mark Hamill, you know, is Luke Skywalker. That's right. All of these characters were inspirations to me and to countless other boys and girls. They made me feel like I could be someone special, that I could be a hero, and that I could save the day. And that's what superheroes do, right? They capture our fantasies, they capture our imagination, they make us think we can do and be things that we otherwise couldn't do or be. I remember running around the yard pretending to be Batman or Superman or the Flash, especially the Flash, because I could never run that quick. That's right. I always wished I imagined as I was trudging along that I was really running at the speed of the Flash. Certainly, if the nerdy Peter Parker could become a superhero and scale walls, I could too, right? Sure. If it floats your boat, man, whatever makes you happy. Superheroes give children hope, and they give them something to aspire to. Yet, in more recent times, superheroes have grown from just a childhood teen enterprise to an enterprise that reaches adults as well. Deadpool, need I say any more, right? Like, I hope you're not letting your kids see Deadpool. We are now no longer just writing comics for kids. We're writing them for adults. In 1997, the comic industry made about $300 million. Now, I'm not going to date myself, but that was the year after I graduated high school. $300 million comic books made in 1997. By 2015, the comic industry made about $940 million. You see the jump? Comics have been extended through TV and movies and have expanded there. So much so that Marvel and DC Comics have their own film studios now, with Marvel recently being acquired by Disney and DC being owned by Warner Brothers. Total box office earnings for Marvel Studios is, for the movie This end of it is $20 billion. $21 billion. Total box office earnings for DC today, counting only the Batman and the Superman movies, is worth $6 billion. That's only that. Now they're coming out with Wonder Woman. They're going to come out with the Justice League. So you can just imagine how that's going to spike. We are a people who long for hope. And we look towards superheroes to come in and save the day. Now when you turn on TV, this person's a hero, that person's a hero. We're lauding heroes left and right where we can, and then disparaging other people where we can, right? That's the news. You're either a hero or you're a villain. There's nothing in between those two realities. We are a people who long for hope. We look for superheroes. It almost harkens back to the days of Greek mythology where you had these gods that did great, and these demigods that did great and wonderful things, did some horrible things as well, but somewhere in there you found relation to yourself, and it was a way for people to connect. We find ourselves living in this world. And in this world, we create superheroes to fight on our behalf because we feel that we are unable to withstand all of the evil that is out there. Right? Isn't it nice to watch Peter Parker overcome his fears, overcome mourning the loss of his uncle, overcome being a nerd who's bullied in school, to become that kid who can climb walls, shut the bullies' mouths up with a web, and sling through the air with a smirk, though you can't see it under the mask? Right? We find ourselves hopeless, looking to God in much the same way we look to our heroes. And this is how we enter the Christmas season, by the way. Right? Because in that little baby that we see born in a manger, who do we see? Do we see a weak little fragile boy that will grow up to be oppressed by the Romans and crucified on a cross? Or do we see God who's going to come in and save the day? Right? We look to the promises of Isaiah in today's text and elsewhere, and we generate anticipation as to when or where or how these things are going to take place. But I want to caution us today, because anticipation is not the same thing as hope. Today's texts and the Nativity as a whole is a story of hope. Not because God is going to come in and swoop in and save the day and make everything better, because 2,000 years later, has the world gotten better, folks? Maybe in some ways, yes. A little better. We're no longer crucifying people, we just execute them on the not the electric chair, we even got better than that too. Lethal injection. No, but you know what I mean, right? It hasn't changed much. I mean, it's changed, but it hasn't changed much. Jesus reminds his disciples that because they are too awaiting, he reminds them that because they are awaiting, that he will come in and save the day. They're looking for the same thing. The whole story of Jesus is that he comes in and he starts to fulfill these roles of being the Messiah, and the disciples and the followers, they all get very, very excited. This is the guy. He's going to come in, he's going to kick out the Romans, he's going to make everything better for us. But it didn't work out that way, did it? He came in to Jerusalem. He scolded the temple priests, overthrew the tables, and caused such a ruckus with the leadership that he was betrayed, handed over to the Romans, whipped, made to carry a cross piece of wood to a pole up on a hill where he was nailed and crucified and died. You see how anticipation and hope don't necessarily go together? We anticipate things without fully realizing what we're anticipating. And when things don't turn out the way we anticipate, we start to lose hope rather than grow stronger in it. And indeed, that's what the disciples did when they ran away, fearing that they too might end up like the one they were hoping would come in and save the day. Jesus' words, what caused Jesus to end up on the cross, was that he didn't come in to save the day, but he came in to inspire others to join him in doing so. We love other people to come in and do our job for us. We love for the person who rushes into a building to save somebody from a fire, rather than being the one who runs into the building with that person to save them from the fire. Jesus reminds us that we don't know when God is going to ultimately come and reverse things. We don't know when the events as described in the Bible are going to come to pass, or how they're going to come to pass, or where they're going to come to pass, or when they're going to come to pass. Jesus says to his disciples, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. And this, no doubt, produced anxiety in his disciples as they were anticipating him to know when these things were going to happen. You're telling us these things are going to happen. When are they going to happen? But anticipation is not hope. Hope, my friends, hope comes from our trust. When we trust in God, we place our hope in God. The disciples were placing their anticipation in God. The disciples were placing their anticipation in what was to come, rather than trusting that when it happened, where it happened, how it happened, it was going to happen. Do you see the difference? We need not know the details, for our hope stems from our faith in God and our trust in God's promises. And as I said to our little ones up here today, we will wrestle with that, and that's okay. Sometimes we'll find ourselves caught in between anticipation and hope, and that's okay. But Jesus said, instead of anxious anticipation, have hope and be ready. Have hope and be ready. Now, what does Jesus mean by being ready? Get a nice snazzy bow tie on? Wear purple? That's how I got ready this morning. What does Jesus mean by be ready? Shave. Harold. This is a reversal. Harold now doesn't have the beard and I do. Wow. Kind of. It's a little there. What does Jesus mean by be ready? He means don't just wait. Do something. Don't just wait around for me to come back and do the job for you. Start doing something. The more we do, the closer we get to it happening. As Isaiah writes at the end of our reading today, come, house of Jacob, let's walk by the light of the Lord. You hear that action in there? Now let's not stand still, looking at the clouds, waiting for them to part. Let's walk. Let's walk by the light of the Lord. Let's place our hope in God and begin living out that hope in all that we do. Amen? Amen. See, the secret here is that while we look to Jesus as our superhero, and there's nothing wrong with that, let's not forget the point of a superhero, which is to inspire us to be heroes ourselves, to go out and to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ in the community. We're already saved. Amen? There's nothing we can do to earn or take that away. We're already saved. The question is, will we live that salvation out in a way that means something for others? Will we do what Jesus has called us to do? Will we leave these four walls and enter a community that is broken and dark and scary and be the light? If your answer is yes, then let's do it. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for this message which challenges us this morning. We are a people who are longing for hope, and yet we have hope in you. We just need to bear it in our lives and live it out in our communities. And I'm thankful to be a part of a church who's doing that. Lord, guide us. Guide us from where we are to where you are calling us to be, so that we may ever march on to Zion, walking in your light. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.